Game week 18 has been an absolute nightmare for me, so today we're going to have a bit of a crash course in how to recover from a nightmare game week as we prepare for Game Week 19. Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and a very Merry Christmas from me if you are celebrating over the next couple of days. In the meantime, let's take a look at my Game Week 18 performance. So far, it's been a certifiable nightmare. As I mentioned in my intro, pretty much everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. These game weeks do happen, maybe once or twice a season. It is frustrating and it is doubling my rank, so it's very, very annoying, especially going into Christmas. But I'm trying to stay calm because these things happen. And on paper, I don't think there's a lot I would have done differently. I've also been unfortunate to see that Lascelles and Simicast both went off with pretty significant injuries, it looks like, certainly in Simicast's case. And the only two players in my starting 11 that returned were either doing very little benefit to my overall rank or even harming it in the case of Mo Salah, whose effective ownership was just north of 100%. So every point he scored actually harmed me very slightly. Otherwise, I had Ollie Watkins as my captain. I did very slightly consider Son, but realistically, that is complete hindsight bias. Ollie Watkins was 99% always going to be my captain, so I don't want to get tied up in I could have done this. It was always going to be a bad game week, mainly because I didn't have Dominic Solanke, who obviously has demolished my overall rank this week. But these things happen. Cole Palmer is still to come today, later on. I don't think anything he does is going to resurrect my rank this week because his effective ownership is quite high. But in the meantime, let's put Game Week 18 to one side and let's figure out how to recover from what is undeniable nightmare game week. Okay, so first up, let's talk about Dominic Solanke. He is the main man at the moment, a hat-trick in Game Week 18. Obviously did have good goal-scoring form before that anyway, and the underlying data, especially in the last 6 or 7 game weeks, has been absolutely phenomenal. So this is a guy in red-hot form, a talisman for a team that is actually starting to attack with real verve now. Bournemouth are looking like a team who really know what they're doing going forward, and they're scoring plenty of goals. I think it is worth noting that Game Week 18 was somewhat situational because they did have a man sent off against them. Bolly in the first half got sent off. So it is maybe a tad fortunate or a tad overperforming to have that hat-trick in Game Week 18. So I'm not trying to get too carried away. But even without that, even if we disregard Game Week 18, he has been fantastic recently anyway. So his ownership is going to rise, his price is going to rise, and he's a player that is going to be on a lot of people's radar. I think he was about 47, 48% effective ownership against me this week, and obviously has obliterated my overall rank just by scoring that hat-trick. The fixtures to come, especially in Game Week 19 against Fulham at home, really good. And Tottenham away from home, I wouldn't be too worried about. Liverpool are conceding goals. West Ham, Nottingham Forest, it's a good run. So Solanke is going to be high in mind for a lot of people. Because this is my team selection video, I have to talk about it in the context of my 11, and I'm really struggling to get across to him now. The reason being is I'm playing 3-5-2. I think if you've got a 3-4-3, he's the perfect third striker, so I'd have no qualms about bringing him in if you don't have him already there. But in a 3-5-2, Ollie Watkins is not losing his place in my side anytime soon. And then the other striker slot, whilst this game week it's Darwin, which is not ideal, eventually that's going to have to be Erling Haaland. And I've got the money in the bank as it stands to get back to him in one move. So I don't really want to use a transfer on Solanke to sell Darwin, especially up against Burnley this game week, which you'd expect Darwin to start him because he was benched in Game Week 18 and Luis Diaz went off with a minor injury as well. There's a quick turnaround, so you'd expect him to start that game. And it is a good game against Burnley. That is a nice fixture for Liverpool to be playing. So selling Darwin for Solanke, yes, on paper seems very, very logical. But if I'm going to be making that transfer to Haaland from Darwin next week anyway, even if I'm not doing it this week, which could still happen, by the way, then I don't know whether it's actually worth that 1 week move, especially when I've got other injuries in my side, which I need to sort out this game week. And therefore, it would be for a -4 hit to bring in Solanke. So annoyingly, in my personal team, I don't think I can get to him this week without being maybe a little bit over aggressive. And as I mentioned in the first section, I don't want to go on tilt just because I've had a bad game week. And so many times in the past, I've chased a player who's scored the points in the previous game week, only to find that actually it's left my team in a worse position because I've gone on tilt, I've taken the hit, and it's not paid off. So yes, he's a great player. I think if you can do it for free, and if you've got a transfer that you can make in your forward line without ruining future plans, then it makes all the sense in the world. In my personal team, unfortunately, I'm not sure I can do it that easily. So Solanke probably has to wait for a week or two more for me. So the reason that I can't be maybe making those transfers up front at the moment is because I do have issues elsewhere. And in defence, going into Game Week 19, before the fixtures were played in 18, I thought I've actually got a benching headache this week with Lascelles and Tsimikas, both with really good fixtures, have now annoyingly gone off injured. I think Lascelles might be fairly minor, but even with that in mind, he's still going to lose his place to Shah and Botman anyway, now that they've both come back from injury. So Lascelles is a transfer out for me, waiting to happen anyway, and he probably wouldn't have played in Game Week 19 even if he was fit. Tsimikas, on the other hand, is even more annoying because we thought he'd probably keep his place for the foreseeable whilst Robertson was out, and that Burnley fixture was obviously a pretty good one for Liverpool to be targeting. Now, Tsimikas looks like he's got a broken collarbone or a very significant collarbone injury, so he's going to be out for a while. I think that makes him a certain transfer out this week. No matter what I have to do, he probably needs to be my priority move out. If you've not got Tsimikas, but you've got Lascelles and maybe Matty Cash, who also looks like a bit of an issue, then this section is definitely relevant for those players as well. You can kind of just replace Tsimikas with either of those players. But for me, because I've got him, Tsimikas is going to have to be my transfer out because he looks like the player out for the longest period of time. The two options I've got are either conservative or aggressive. On screen, as you can see, I've narrowed it down to two prime candidates. Number one is Gabriel, and that would give me a defensive double up of Saliba and Gabriel for that Arsenal defensive cover. They are statistically the best defence in the league so far this season, and as you can see, the next four fixtures are very, very good. So Gabriel would be the safe bet. He's around the same price, so I'm not spending that extra money that I've got reserved for Haaland, which is really important. But he's got far less upside than the other move that I'm considering. And I think considering that it would lock me out of going for a double up in midfield for Arsenal with Martin Ødegaard, for instance, I would quite like to have that option if possible. So maybe avoiding Gabriel and going for someone like Trent, who is a much higher upside pick. He's in phenomenal form, and over the next few weeks, even though on paper the fixtures don't look amazing, I still expect him to tick along very nicely. He's got that prime fixture against Burnley, and obviously it's swapping a Liverpool asset for a Liverpool asset, so you're not really losing out there either. You're still covered off defensively with Liverpool. Now, the one issue with that makes it an aggressive play is that it means that I couldn't get back to Haaland in one move from next game week onwards, and it does also mean that I can't get to Haaland this game week if he's confirmed fit. So it would be weighing up whether or not taking a hit for Haaland next game week is going to be worth it. And that would also mean having to downgrade one of my key positions, for example, Mo Salah, who does have Newcastle at home. But again, Mo Salah at home against Newcastle, who have been very poor away from home, doesn't sit quite right with me. So it's whether or not I want to commit myself to that -4 next game week and chase the upside with Trent, or go slightly more conservative, slightly more safe, but maybe much less upside potential with going with Gabriel. So one thing I just wanted to mention really quickly is if there is a scenario where we get news that Haaland is definitely going to start against Everton this game week, what could I do to get back to him? And because I need to make that transfer in defence, it kind of locks me into a -4 if I wanted to go to Erling Haaland. And I think it depends whether or not I then want to captain him. Now, obviously, there are other captaincy options. We'll go through them in just a second. But in theory, if I wanted to captain him, I'd probably be buying him back for a -4 and doing that double swap with Darwin going for Haaland as well. Now, as I mentioned previously, that does mean that I would have to go with Gabriel because I couldn't afford Trent and Haaland in those two moves. I'd need to make sure I've got that money saved from that defensive move to make sure that I've got the money to take the hit and get Darwin straight to Haaland in game week 19. Now, this is in a scenario where we get locked in team news that Haaland is going to start. I don't think we're going to get that sort of news around Christmas, but it could happen. And if I wanted to captain Haaland, if I was absolutely set on doing so, then this would be the way that I'd have to go about doing it. So the way I see it, there are 3 prime captaincy candidates in game week 19, one of which is going to be Erling Haaland if he's confirmed fit, but obviously that's a massive asterisk. We don't know whether he's going to play in that game. And even if he does, his minutes might be reduced because he's coming back from that foot injury. The other 2 are in a lot of sides at the moment, and those are Mo Salah away at Burnley, which is a great fixture. The underlying data is great. Obviously, he's bagging a lot of returns at the moment anyway. And then Heung-min Son against Brighton away from home, who have conceded in every single Premier League game so far this season. And obviously, Son is in red-hot form as well. 15 returns this season, including 11 goals. He's absolutely sensational at the moment. So even though the underlying attacking data isn't quite as good, and the fixture on paper is more difficult than what Salah has got against Burnley, I think he is going to be a nice differential candidate. I would back him to do well in that game. No questions asked there. But I think overall, out of those 2, my captaincy is more likely going to be on Salah. Burnley away from home. Yes, they will probably try and be as tight as possible, but Burnley generally don't play that low defensive block very well. They tend to like playing out from the back. They've got that high line. So I think Mo Salah is likely to benefit in that game more than, say, a Sheffield United at home, for example, where they will low block, they will try and dig in and try and make it very difficult, where spaces just aren't going to be created for him. In that sort of game against Burnley, I think he can benefit from that. But differential, I don't mind Heung-min Son either against Brighton. The same sort of logic applies. They will play the high line. They are playing out from the back. They have conceded in every game, so I don't mind him either. If you wanted to go with Erling Haaland, this would be the week where he's going to be a differential captaincy candidate. If we don't get confirmed news that he's fit, then he'll be very differential and you're taking a chance on him starting the game. What I would say, though, Everton defensively have been very, very good this season. They're comfortably top half in terms of the defensive data, and they have kept 4 clean sheets in the last 5 games as well. So I think overall, because Salah and Son both have good fixtures as a captaincy candidate, it does put me off prioritising Erling Haaland this game week, because we still haven't got news that he's definitely going to be fit anyway. And even if he was, I think there are good, logical, alternative captaincy candidates this week anyway. So I think that probably puts me off enough to say that for a -4, in my case, I'm probably not going to make that move. Right then, so let's take a look at my team selection for game week 19 with the transfer loaded in. For the sake of argument, I've put in Trent at the moment as my Tsimikas replacement, but I think Gabriel could equally, it's like 51-49 on which I'm going to pick at the moment. So do make sure that you follow me over on Twitter, now known as X, at FPL Pricey, where I will be posting my Game Week 19 team reveal before the deadline, because it's still up in the air at the moment and I'm not sure which one I'm going to go for as it stands. But for argument's sake, let's have a look with Trent in the lineup. That does admittedly look very good as a back 3 with Saliba, Trent and Porro. All have a little bit of upside, obviously more so in the case of Trent and Porro, and defensively they've all been pretty solid as well. Leno in goal, away against Bournemouth, who has Solanke in their 11. I'm a little bit concerned about that because Solanke is going to do damage to my overall rank, even more so with the amount of transfers coming in for him this game week. That is very worrying. But again, for that -4, I think, considering the fact I think Darwin does play against Burnley and he's likely to get a lot of chances in that game, I don't think it's worth the -4, especially when I'm going to be moving Darwin out next week for Haaland anyway. So overall, I think in midfield, I'm pretty well set up. I'm very happy with it. As I mentioned, Salah captain, Son vice-captain. I'm going to hold Saka for the time being, even though his form has dipped a little bit. Gordon, I'm hoping, is absolutely fine at home to Nottingham Forest. Same goes with Palmer against Crystal Palace, although we haven't seen Chelsea against Wolves yet, so who knows. Knowing my luck, he's going to get injured in that game, in which case I'd probably just start Archer. But yeah, on my bench, Turner has still got his place, but Leno's definitely the easier start there. Archer against Luton is a nice first sub to have, and then Lascelles, unfortunately, has probably lost his place anyway, even if he was fit, so he's probably a transfer I need to make in the next few weeks as well. But for the time being, I'll hold him on my bench and hope that he regains his place or regains fitness over the next few anyway. However, that is how I'm set up for Game Week 19 as it stands. Let me know in the comments below if there are any other transfers you think I should be making, even for a hit this week, and whether or not you'd be prioritising Dominic Solanke for a hit as well. So there you have it. That's my team selection ahead of Game Week 19. Very much not locked in as it stands, so do make sure you go and follow me over on X at FPL Pricey, where I'll be locking in ahead of the deadline. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say a massive thank you, as it's Christmas, to all of you that have been subscribing, tuning in, week out, and liking the videos. It makes a massive, massive difference. I started this channel back in July at the start of the season. Today has been my 50th FPL video, and I'm loving making content at the moment. So hopefully you're enjoying the channel so far as well. In the meantime, if you could help me out by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, that would be hugely helpful and a great Christmas present for me to receive. I wanted to wish you all a very Merry Christmas if you are celebrating, and I look forward for the next video, for video 51, as we start looking at Game Week 20 early next week.